St. John the Philosopher here. What we call the culture war is not new. There's always been a push and pull between the ideological forces seeking to influence or direct society in one way or another, mostly through entertainment. But what is new, or at least seems that way, is that today's culture war has found a new front: superheroes. In my Stan Lee tribute video, which I'll link in the description, I explain why superheroes are incredibly important as not only reflections of culture, but as influences on it. There are people out there who let Spider-Man teach them how to deal with bullies, took lessons on morality from Superman, and learned to judge people by their character rather than their group identity from reading X-Men. Comics helped shape many people's outlooks on life. Comics are important. Superheroes in particular have always been a big deal, but they are even more so these days, dominating theater box offices and child bedspreads alike. In the entertainment landscape, the demigods and techno wizards have captured the lion's share, Panther's share, of the territory. As such, it's what we would call a key node in the greater culture war. If you've been paying attention at all, you might have figured out that I'm something of a comic book. I grew up on them and continued collecting them well into adulthood, as the stacks of long boxes in my basement will verify. Eventually, that sort of petered out, with work and family leaving not much room for it. But for a little while there, I'd managed to read an article or pop into a comic shop once in a while to see what was going on with my favorite characters. Some of the choices seemed off. But even in their heyday, comics' experimental nature often led to some really bad storylines and some even worse costumes. I mean, what is this? So yeah, at first I took a lot of the recent weirdness in stride. But lately, having a desire to jump back into my old hobby, I was confronted by the new, ugly reality in comics: the age of the SJW. SJW stands for Social Justice Warrior, a sarcastic moniker, granted, given to highly active far leftist ideologues. These smugly self-satisfied totalitarians demand strict adherence to their identity politics dogma and insert it into everything they touch. As a prime example, I give you SJW Marvel Comics. Unsatisfied with the demographics of some of Marvel's most popular titles,
you're a white male!
SJWs inside the company made a concerted effort to quote-unquote add diversity, not so much by featuring any number of its current staple of well-loved minority characters. Instead, they completely supplanted some of the most popular existing characters by removing them from their own titles and giving their names to badly written derivatives whose only redeeming qualities, if you can call them that, were the virtue signal points they gained in the press and on social media. Not only that, but both the written and visual storytelling suffered under the weight of the propaganda messages they were made to carry. I mean, Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel, went from this to this for no reason. And Peter Parker, Spider-Man, was being drawn like this. Worst of all, because far-left extremists are devoid of solid foundational ideas about right and wrong, the superheroes they write started behaving like villains. In the storyline called Civil War II, Captain Marvel ran a secret prison where she detained American citizens on the pretense that they would commit a crime in the future. Maybe. Her efforts would result in the death of a teammate, and she nearly killed Iron Man by her own hand. In the end, she realizes the error of her ways and seeks to reconcile her misdeeds. Actually, no. That's not how SJWs work. She's rewarded for acting like a tyrant with unlimited resources from the president to lead the superhero community into the future. In another storyline, the teenage Iron Man replacement, Riri Williams, literally takes over a small country. Things only get worse in the indie comic scene. Indie, or independent comics, are books produced outside of the purview of the big two companies, Marvel and DC. In a book called Ignited, two well-known writers who still do contract work on big two books created a group of superpowered teenagers whose heroic deeds include assaulting teachers, fellow classmates, and the police. Not for actual criminal behavior, mind you, but for having opposing political views. If you want to know more about that particular gem, I'll link to a couple of reviews in the description. Now, for the past decade or so, we've been living in the golden age of superhero cinema. 4 of the top 10 grossing films of all time are superhero movies, all released in that decade, all based on the comics I was reading as a kid. With public confidence in those stories at an all-time high, that same SJW turn in comics is poised to make its debut in the theaters and on TV. The source material just about guarantees that leftist ideology will eventually be crammed in between the fistfights and explosions. Now that we're aware that this somewhat new culture war battleground exists, we need to engage. For too long, we've accepted a little bit of poison in our entertainment meals. Granted, it's not reasonable to expect the wide variety of entertainment we consume to present values 100% in line with our own all the time, but it's also unreasonable for our entertainment to spit on our values every chance it gets. The former used to be the norm, but in recent times, the latter has become the modus operandi of Hollywood. So we need to do something about it, and I mean actually do something. One thing we conservative-minded people tend to be really bad at is truly competing in some of the most important areas of cultural influence. We've just about ceded all of journalism, education, and entertainment to the radical ideologues, only occasionally voicing some tepid words of disapproval. Ultimately, this is all about influence. We can't afford to sit back and watch while radicals use the entertainment we love to indoctrinate young people and groom the rest of us into sitting silent before their extreme agenda. Listening to talk radio and occasionally sharing a salty Facebook meme isn't enough. The first thing we have to do is be mindful of what's currently out there. Our kids are the targets, so we have to be aware of what we allow them to view. It's not enough anymore to simply make sure the content rating is appropriate or that it's produced by entertainment brands previously known for their family-friendly content, like Disney or Nick Jr. The SJWs now at the levers of power at these organizations are counting on the goodwill those brands have gained over the decades to act as a smokescreen while they undermine everything you're trying to teach your kids. Be proactive. Find a media outlet with honest reviews that give you a heads up on what to expect. We should no longer accept the SJW sucker punches. Secondly, we have to create our own content. And I don't mean the right-leaning version of their garbage, just good entertainment that doesn't push radical leftist ideals or demonize the traditional values that most people still hold in real life. Now, you might be saying to yourself that you're no entertainer, but you are a consumer. And part of creating content is ensuring that the resources and support necessary to do so are in place. Conservatives seem to be more inclined to give to a think tank than to anything in the entertainment arena. But that's precisely the venue where the battles of the culture war are truly being fought. So be on the lookout for conservative-leaning or at least conservative-friendly content with your wallet open. Those people may very well be putting their livelihoods on the line to stay true to our values. The least we can do is throw a few bucks their way.
I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
So that's it. Stop giving your money to people that despise you and want to lead your kids astray, and start supporting the people on the front lines of the culture war. In time, they may prove themselves to be the real superheroes. Tell me what you think of this video. What are your thoughts about the culture war being fought in entertainment? What conservative-leaning entertainment are you supporting? Discuss in the comments. In the meantime, be sure to like, subscribe, and share for more videos on religion, culture, and politics. That's all for today. This is St. John the Philosopher. Goodbye, God bless, and I'll see you in another video.